Welcome back to this week's feature story about the 1955 Plymouth line. Since featuring Ken and Denise Begg's gorgeous Savoy, the research I did on these cars really made for a fascinating story about how they evolved to being designed by a master stylist like Virgil Exner. I think you'll agree. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't already do so. It's free and worth every penny. I'd also like to see your comments, so I know we're heading in the right direction. Next week, our feature car is an absolutely stunning 1971 Datsun 240Z. You won't want to miss it. The Plymouth Savoy was named after an upscale lodging facility in London, England, called the Savoy Hotel. Other exclusive British establishments were also the namesakes for the Plymouth Plaza and the Belvedere models. Plymouth used the name Savoy on several automobiles during the 1950s and 60s. The Chrysler Corporation's lineup for 1955 was a radical departure from where they had previously been. 1955 was the first year that a newly recruited designer from Studebaker named Virgil Exner would shake things up in Highland Park. The models he began designing in 1949, when he first came aboard, to actually seeing them in production, would come to fruition this year. Exner would quickly become synonymous with tail fins, lots of chrome, creative use of color on both the outside and the interiors of his designs, and the adaptation of novel technology, which buyers seem to prefer. The 1955 Plymouth line was a home run for Exner and his team, including Cliff Voss, Maury Baldwin, Charles Bud Gitchling, and Henry King, with the entire model offerings now known as the Forward Look. As mentioned earlier, they were available in three distinct series: the entry-level Plaza, the mid-series Savoy, and the top-of-the-line Belvedere, with all of the popular body styles of the day sprinkled throughout the lineup. Exner and his team had the styling under control, but the mechanical engineering teams were busy designing a new V8 engine, the very first for Plymouth. Initially, a 241 cubic incher was offered, putting out 157 horsepower, but it was soon discontinued as an option in January of 1955. It was dropped in favor of the 260 cubic inch Hi-Fire V8, which was also an optional engine at the beginning of 1955. 1 year later, this compact power plant would evolve into the 318A series, an engine Chrysler used from 1956 to 66. It would be a few more years until a Plymouth would get a Hemi, and it was the baddest one of all, the 426. 1955 was a good year for most Americans. The Korean War had been over for 2 years, and the economy was now back in full swing. Many GIs had married after that conflict, and also after World War II, which ended a few years earlier in 1945. They were now buying homes using the GI Bill and raising their families. Purchasing a new car was on the priority list for many of these young households. The American auto industry produced and sold nearly 8 million cars for the model year 1955. Yes, I said cars. Trucks are another category entirely. Plymouth accounted for just a tick over 700,000. The U.S. population hovered at nearly 166 million souls, and both Alaska and Hawaii would have to wait 4 more years before they were officially declared states. That's roughly one new car built and sold for every 21 people that resided in the country at the time. As you can imagine, it was critical that each manufacturer make their car lineup more appealing to any of their potential customers than their competition. The marketing department dubbed the entire Plymouth lineup as a great new car for the young in heart. They also were known as the biggest car in Plymouth history, aglow with beauty and alive with power, and dozens more interesting slogans. Only 2 models, though, had standard engines. The Business Coupe could only be had with a straight 6, and the convertible was only available with the V8. All others could be ordered in either form. Chrome and fins, pastel colors, 2 and even 3-tone paint, and a long list of optional features like power steering that many buyers ordered, upped the price on every car, increasing manufacturers and dealer profits. Additionally, dealer-installed items could be installed at their location and increase the bottom line as well. Yes, even safety features, some standard and others optional, crept their way into the car industry as more people took to the roads, since the interstate highway system was now in full-fledged construction. It was now possible to comfortably drive long distances with your family for vacations, reaching your destination safely and in a lot less time than traveling the U.S. highway system. Many cars also had new engines and other mechanical improvements as well. Most notably, GM was now equipping all of their models with the much preferred 12-volt electric system. Ford and Chrysler would follow 1 year later. Virgil Exner really knew how to make a car look both modern and fresh, and the trend by the second half of the 50s was to make cars appear lower and longer than their predecessors. Compared to the 1954 models from Plymouth, roof lines were lowered by 1.35 inches and the wheelbase increased an inch to 115. However, designers also added a little over 10 inches to the overall length, which was an immediately noticeable departure from the previous year. The car's front tread was widened to equal the rear's. This new extended and heavier body necessitated a new boxed frame fitted with 2 additional body mounts, located both inside and outside of the frame rails. Of course, a heavier and larger car would need additional stopping power. V8 sedans were now fitted with 11-inch drums up front and slightly smaller 10-inch drums in the rear. 6-cylinder cars featured 10-inch brake drums on all corners, and V8 station wagons had the big 11-inch drums all the way around. Outside, the car's sharply angled front fenders began a visual sweep to the rear of the car, where the small finned quarter panels angled down naturally to the rear bumper, where the attractive taillights were nestled exactly where you'd expect to see them. They were not as prominent as other cars of the era, and this is where Exner's genius lies, creating a well-proportioned car that appears larger than it really is, and accenting everything with subtle details like tail lamps and ornamentation. Beginning at the front of the 1955 Plymouth, the center grille was a rather simple ribbed single bar, as seen on the 1954 cars, only a bit more prominent. There was a sculpted extension on both sides that angled up slightly as it concluded between each headlamp and park lamp. Except for the Plaza models, the headlamps were encased in chrome housings. Naturally, the hood edge was also trimmed in chrome. Above that, each car was adorned with the appropriate ornamentation for the engine that resided under hood. To add just a bit more glitz to the front, an ornament that resembled a sailing ship was seen in the massive hood's middle front section. The ship-like hood ornament was used by Plymouth since 1934 to represent the Mayflower, a ship that landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620. Looking at the silhouette of this beautifully transformed Plymouth, the most obvious feature is the profile of the full-view windshield that curved up into the roof and around the car's sides. Side trim varied by model, but was intentionally designed for the very popular two-tone color schemes of the day. This was known as a sport tone sweep. However, only the Belvedere hardtop and convertible received the hallmark of quality badge at the front of both doors. The same overall design theme was carried back to the car's rear. The attractive and rather unobtrusive tail lamps were slightly hooded by the angle of the upper fins of the rear quarter panels. A rather understated lower lip matched the character line crease of the body's sides, flush with the bottom of the tail lamps. A massive bumper, similar to the front, wrapped all the way around the rear lower part of the quarter panel sheet metal. The extended rear sheet metal increased trunk space to a whopping 33.8 cubic feet. All of this is what led the Society of Illustrators to vote the 1955 Plymouth as the most beautiful car of the year. Inside, these beauties had a wide array of optional materials and color choices, depending on the series. However, all shared the fully symmetrical dash designed by Hal Pilkey. An interesting dash-mounted feature for 1955 was the automatic gear selector called the Flight Control Selector. First used on the 1953 Chrysler Imperial and readapted for use in other Chrysler products in 1955. Sales of the new Plymouth took off almost immediately. Chrysler would soon be building 2,400 cars per day, running 3 full shifts, 6 days per week. Jack Mansfield, Plymouth's president at the time, told Motor Trend magazine that he had never seen anything like it in his 30 years in the automobile business. Production during December of 1954 was almost 78,000 units, the biggest single month in Plymouth's history. This is traditionally a slow time for the industry because of the holidays. This is a unique era for automobiles, and they have many fans around the world. Nothing exemplifies American opulence more than these cars, which were built and marketed during a time of incredible confidence in the U.S. economy, long before competition from imported vehicles, government regulations, fuel economy worries, production cost concerns, and limited model availability, to name a few. See, I told you the story of the mid-50s Plymouth lineup was an interesting story. I hope you'll agree. I always like to read your comments, so we keep evolving and keeping the channel to suit you. We have a lot of fun with these cool cars and their awesome owners, and bringing you their unique and intriguing stories. If you like the channel and haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free, and since we post 2 videos per week now, you don't want to miss even one. I also welcome all your comments. Thanks for watching. I know you have tons of choices on YouTube, and I appreciate it and will strive to continue bringing you interesting vehicles and their stories. Until next time,